Welcome to a special collaboration podcast between me, Sonny, who's going to be representing the Illini cast, and I'll let my co-hosts introduce themselves from the WildChat.
I'm Ashleigh. I'm joined by my co-host Adam. We're missing one tonight, Dylan, who is at a hockey game. But we are the WildChat. We are all Northwestern sports all the time. Super excited to be here today with Sunny.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Let's be honest, the college football world is all talking about our game upcoming on Saturday. I don't know if there's another big game on Saturday. So, we got to throw the content out there because it's what the people want. And that's Illinois and Northwestern football talk. So, thanks for taking the time out. I watched your guys' episode with Maryland and a couple of the other teams. So, I like the energy you guys bring. It's very entertaining. I figure what we can kind of do is we can just go back and forth, ask each other questions about our teams, and then we can just kind of go from there. Does that sound good?
Love it.
Let me start off as an Illinois football fan. Question for you is why couldn't you guys stink for one more year? That's all we needed. I mean, we had this locked in as a W on our end, and we would get bowl eligible, and now we're going to be fighting for our lives on Saturday. So I guess what I'm really trying to ask you is, you guys are 6-5. One of the premier stories, the best stories in college football this year. How did you guys get to this point?
I mean, it's got to just be the David Braun effect, really. After what happened this offseason and everything with Pat Fitzgerald, I mean, people are thinking this Northwestern team's winning 2 games max. I know Ashleigh predicted 4. I was a little bit more conservative. I felt like this was a 3-win team. But, I mean, the team has just bought in to David Braun. It's really that simple. Sitting in some press conferences this year and getting to cover this team a little bit, it's just very clear that this team bought in and believed from the beginning. And they started off with a loss, then went loss, win. Currently on the first back wins this season, beating Wisconsin 2 weeks ago on the road. Really impressive win. And then one, at home against Purdue. Really close game at the end, but found a way to get a win. This team's just finding ways to be clutch in big moments. They're getting production from everyone offensively and defensively, and they're just coming up with big moments and big plays, and they bought into the system and their roles. And I mean, this is the best this team is playing football right now, and it's important, especially at the latter part of the season, gaining bowl eligibility last week, but more importantly, having the opportunity to spoil, what Illinois fans hopefully, see as a bowl game potentially.
Were you both on board with removing the interim tag for David?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I was definitely I hopped on the train a little bit earlier than everyone else. I caught a bit of flack for it, sharing that opinion publicly. I said that I wanted David Braun to be full-time head coach, no interim, after the Penn State game, which was our biggest loss of the season. So I think my timing might have been a little off to make that announcement. Maybe I should have waited a little bit. Maybe I should have, maybe it wasn't the best timing, but I still stand by it. I mean, he's, like Adam said, I mean, clearly the culture in the locker room has changed. I mean, in a season where no one thought we would win more than 2 games. I mean, some people had 1, some people had none. I think at Big Banter, we were the only team or the only podcast to have the team at more than 2 wins. So no one thought we could do it. And I'm sure for a portion of the time, the players didn't either. I credit so much of it to David Braun. He's kind of the people's coach. I don't know if you saw the interview on Big Ten Network after we all stormed the field. Adam and I and Dylan were all in the field that day, but David Braun was like high-fiving the fans and, fist bumping the students. He was so excited about it. I've told people he's the people's coach. I don't know if there's a better way to describe it, but we love him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite as fond. For me, it's been a great story, obviously. I guess I do have some hesitation to see how good he can, because this is he's kind of coaching with Fitzgerald's guys still, right? Like his coaching staff are all guys who are signed on with Fitzgerald. So I guess what I kind of talked about in the in Huddle, I think I was a co-host within the past week, is I want to see what happens when the off season hits and see which coaches decide to look for other opportunities, with someone, maybe they've worked with before. I want to see what David Braun's recruiting is like. He's never obviously been in a position like this before, especially at a P, or in particular at a P5 level. So, and obviously this is something I'm going to be looking at very closely because, Northwestern being one of the protected rivals for Illinois, this is, this directly involves my program too. So, I'm happy for you guys, kind of as happy as a rival, can be for another rival, just because you guys kind of started off the season in such a, like nobody wants to, with that cloud being held over them. It's like, it was really unfortunate. I was one of the guys who had you guys at I think I had you at 2 wins just from your out of conference. And so you completely surprised me, but I'm an idiot. I had Illinois winning 9 games, so it shows how little I should be talking college football moving forward. But it's my podcast.
To be honest, it sounds like you're just scared of David Braun. That's kind of what it's coming off as. I think you're just a little scared of the purple to the north.
It's just one of those things. Like, who is he? Like, where did he come from? Like, we heard, the whole thing was Fitzgerald, and, obviously we've had the better of Fitzgerald the last couple of years. So, it was kind of trending the Illini way. And then, that whole fiasco happened, and we thought at least for 2-3 years, Northwestern would be going through like a rebuilding process. They hire an interim, then they're going to have to find a real coach. Then it's going to take a couple of years of recruiting cycles and whatnot. And then in the meantime, we can count on one of your wins, one of our, as a win in order for us to reach bowl eligibility. And here we are, rivalry week. And you guys, year 1, you guys already hit 6. And we're fighting for our lives for 6. So there's an ounce of frustration in my voice. I agree with that. But you guys got any questions for me?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this Illinois team, beginning of the season, moments where some really solid moments, obviously a lot of bad, like for example that Purdue game. But the past 5 weeks have all been 1 possession games. And it feels like this Illinois team is it's almost there, but it's not quite there. So as from a fan's perspective, like what are you thinking about in terms of this team?
We've a lot of people, as you kind of talked about, they saw 2 games of Illinois on national TV. They saw that Penn State game where it was Luke Altmaier's worst game of his career, where he threw 4 interceptions. But I mean, we competed in that first half, but it's just our quarterback just had the worst game of his life. And then we had the Purdue fiasco, which I have no words for right now. It's one of those where if we could get the Purdue and Nebraska game, if we played them on Saturday, I think we would be a touchdown favorite over Purdue. And I think we could beat Nebraska given a second chance. I remember, it was a Friday night we were playing that Nebraska game. We lost 20-7, and it's not because Nebraska played well. They played awful. But that game was one of the most awful display of football I've ever seen as an Illinois fan, period. And, I'd gone through the Tim Beckman, Lovie Smith era, and I just didn't recognize that team at all. So as you're talking about, we get beat by, I forget which game was latter, was Purdue or Nebraska, but after that we have Maryland and Wisconsin coming up, and we're staring at, 0-4 start to the conference before we go into our bye week. And the mood, the attitude with Illini Nation was at an all-time low. I mean, we just weren't feeling it. I think we were 2 touchdown underdogs to Maryland at Maryland. And, we made a similar bet that you did with the Turtleheads. Not expected to, have a shipment be sent to our house. But, we pulled off the upset, and we were clearly the better team against Maryland. Kind of surprised all of us. since that Maryland game, we dominated 3 quarters against Wisconsin. Then Johnny Newton gets ejected in the fourth quarter. We give up an 18-point lead, and we lose that game. We beat Minnesota the following week. Everyone knows about the Indiana shootout, the John Paddock game from 2 weeks ago, and then we go down to the last 5-6 minutes against Iowa. It's one of those. It's a case of 2 seasons. Like up until that Nebraska game, I didn't know what team I was watching. We had no semblance of an identity on offense. There was no, when you think of Brett Bielema, you think of running the football, play good defense, and the typical Big Ten football. And then it was in the Maryland game where all of a sudden our 4-star freshman Caden Fagan, all of a sudden it was kind of his emergence. And, the guy is massive. And so for the next 4 or 5 games, it was just handed off to him. And all of a sudden now defenses couldn't overload on Luke Altmaier, who's been a good quarterback. Don't get me wrong. I think he's the best quarterback in the Big Ten West. But the simple matter is there was no running game keeping him honest. And so he was our running back. And that's just a lot of pressure on a quarterback who's really in his first full season playing college football. Once Caden got back there, our defense has stepped up. We were last in the league in sacks for the first half of the Big Ten season. Since then, we're leading the Big Ten in sacks. One of our guys is leading, the Big Ten in sacks individually. It's just been a completely different team, and it's a shame. It's not how this works. Everyone has the what ifs, but I feel like if we had another 5 weeks to the season, Illinois is at the point where they could come back and start competing for the Big Ten West. But, what if is not how all of this works. So that's, it is what it is. Right now we're all just zeroed in on Saturday, try to get that bowl game, try to get those 15 extra practices and kind of build towards it next year. It's a transition year, with Illinois lost 3 guys to the NFL in the top 70 picks. So we knew it was a rebuilding year coming into the year, but I just had higher hopes. And, again, we're turning into the team I thought we would, but, it hasn't been like that all year long. For you guys, what would you say is like the kind of, let's be honest, I'm so focused on Illinois football that I don't exactly watch a lot of Northwestern football.
As you probably shouldn't.
When I tune in on Saturday, give me kind of a scouting report of what I should be looking for on offense and then defense.
Ashleigh, I'm gonna let you take this one first, and then I'm gonna hit you with some like under the radar guys that I just absolutely love.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So someone that I've loved all season, although this is a generic answer, is Ben Bryant. He's our new quarterback this year, transfers from Cincinnati. He's been injured for a majority of the season, and came back with a vengeance and has been doing really well ever since he came back. So I definitely look out for him. Like, I think he's just been getting better every game as he settles in. Something I noticed last week at Purdue, he was starting to think, I don't want to say criticize because I love Ben Bryant, but criticize is the right word. I'd always criticize his lack of creativity, and his lack of, like, he doesn't really run. He's not, like, when he scrambles, he's getting sacked. Like, he doesn't think on his feet. He's not as creative as maybe your Brendan Sullivan, who runs with the ball a little bit more, but doesn't have the accuracy in the pass game that you might like. I think last game he got a lot better at doing that quick thinking. There's one play, I don't remember when it was, but it was a 3rd down. He was about to get sacked. He decides to go for the shovel pass instead of taking the sack. And then we end up getting the 1st down. Like that kind of play, I think he's getting a lot better with it. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do this weekend. But then I'd also say, I think our best wide receiver of the year has been Bryce Kirtz. I don't have enough good things to say about him. But last weekend, it was the Cam show. It was our running back, Cam Porter, and our wide receiver, Cam Johnson, that scored all the touchdowns that we had against Purdue. So they've been doing well also. So I feel like those are the more basic names. Like when you're looking at the field, that's who you should know. Like Cam Porter's been doing really well. We thought it would be A.J. Henning, the transfer from Michigan, because he was coming from Michigan, doing really well on special teams there. But he hasn't been the playmaker that your Kurtz or your Porter has been. So those are the basic names. Adam's got all the under the radar first look at who you should be looking out for, especially on defense. You got that, Adam?
Yeah, I'll cook on defense a little. I mean, before we move to the defensive side, I want to shout out Joe Himon. I shout him out in every single podcast. He's probably, I mean, he's running back 2B essentially. Cam Porter's the bell cow. He's the starter. You have Trey Tyus in there too, who gets a lot of goal line work or short down and distance work. But Joe Himon, undersized guy, not necessarily your power running back in any capacity, but I mean, when he catches the football out of the backfield and he's in open field, it's going to go for 40 yards. It's that simple. He had an 85 or 75 or like 80-yard touchdown against UTEP earlier in the year off a screen pass. Had a 57-yard catch off a screen pass against Maryland that almost went for a touchdown. Like if he catches the ball in open space, it's going to go for a big gain. He gets, I'd say, 4 or 5 touches a game, and I mean, if he finds some open space, it's dangerous. Defensively, I'm really looking at. I mean, the linebackers are really strong for Northwestern. You look at Xander Mueller, Bryce Gallagher, but I'm really happy with how the secondary has looked this year. You look at Devin Turner, one of those younger players in the back end, but he's so physical in the run game, really gets downhill, and then just is a disruptor in the pass game too. But then, you got your cornerbacks too, Theran Johnson and Garnett Hollis Jr., especially Garnett Hollis Jr. I mean, that guy is a legit NFL caliber player. I'd be surprised if he didn't make some sort of NFL roster next season if he opted to go that route. I mean, he's just built like an NFL corner. Theran Johnson had a pick in the Iowa game. They've been really strong all season, and that was kind of a big issue with this Northwestern defense. I mean, you lose Cam Mitchell to the NFL draft. And you're like, who's going to fill in the secondary? But Coco Azema has been great. The secondaries looked really, really good. It's just at the end of the day for Northwestern, it comes down to can they stop the run? That's just something that's been so just the biggest issue this season. And Purdue ran all over Northwestern last week. You look at Devin Maccabee and Jones, Tracy Jones, that were just really, really good against Northwestern. So it's going to be the run game that I think is really the focal point and kind of the key if Illinois can be successful in that aspect. That could point to a victory for them.
That'd be tricky for Illinois because, we've basically lost 4 of our running backs to season-ending injuries. Against Iowa, we actually, when Reggie Love, the only remaining running back, he had to sit out for a snap or two. We had to have a converted linebacker come in and play running back for us for a couple snaps. So, without Caden Fagan, Reggie Love, he's had a couple solid games. He was our starter coming into the season, but for me to kind of give you guys a scouting report is I want to see what happens with John Paddock once again. Obviously we saw what happened the last game or the last drive against Minnesota. Then he had 507 yards, just went berserk against Indiana following that up. Last week, he was held down a little bit, but it's also against Iowa. You're talking about playing Iowa in Kinnick Stadium in the evening. It's dark. That's one of the toughest places to play. I just told you about a running back situation. John Paddock was forced to throw the ball 47 times. So you give, Phil Parker, a clue that you're going to throw the ball almost every single time. He's going to be able to conjure up a defensive scheme that's going to, limit the quarterback's, capabilities and efficiency. So, from what I know of the Northwestern defense, you guys are kind of middle of the pack, and nothing was jumping out at me for the most part. So I'm interested in seeing if the John Paddock legend continues for another week. He's got essentially 2 more games, well, at least 1 game. And if we get the bowl game, Brett's already said that Paddock is going to start here on out. So that's the thing I'm most looking forward to. Can he continue that hot streak? Can he find the open guy? You'll see it. I've never seen a quarterback who makes decisions so quickly. I think I saw a stat that of quarterbacks who took something like 70 snaps, he's got the shortest time between the snap and releasing the ball. You're talking about under 2.5 seconds. He kind of knows what he's going to do and he doesn't overthink it. He's this is his sixth year in college football. He sat on the bench for Ball State for 3 years. He started there last year, and then he's a walk on for us this year. But the kind of difference between Luke Altmyer and Paddock is Luke sometimes holds on to the ball too long, and he kind of gets nervous a little bit, and he's kind of makes himself run, and so he tends to get sacked a little bit more often, whereas Paddock rarely gets sacked because he's kind of committed to, like, he knows what he wants to do, and he's not afraid to do it. You listen to interviews with him, and he's just one of the most confident guys, and not even in a bad way. Like, he's so grateful for the opportunity that he has that you can tell he's just kind of enjoying the moment. His family's a legacy at University of Illinois between his great-grandfather, his grandfather, and his uncle. They all played for the University of Illinois. So for him to kind of add to that, he knows he's just kind of letting it all soak in. On the defensive side for us, yesterday, I believe it was announced that the Drazon Newton and Keith Randolph are going to be going to the NFL. And so, in particular, Drazon Newton, this is going to be his last college football game. And I can imagine him, going, balls to the wall, just trying to make one last impression in front of the fans in Champaign, just to kind of leave a lasting legacy. I remember last year, Sidney Brown had a pick six in his last game as a senior, against you guys. And, I know Drazon's going to be playing his butt off. So I think those two are the guys to kind of look at. Our secondary's been the rough part of our team all season long. And that's kind of because of what I told you earlier. We lost so much talent to the NFL draft that a lot of the guys are either underclassmen or new guys we brought in as transfers. And so, they haven't adjusted as fast as we would have hoped. So I think, if I had to guess, this is going to be either the John Paddock game or the Drazon Newton game for us to win. And if it's not, then we're looking forward to a long off season down in Champaign, at least. But
I guess the funny thing is, like, obviously it makes sense that Illinois has decided to go with Paddock. But like, there are moments when you watch Luke Altmyer and you're just like, wow, he can be really good. And it's just kind of this thing for Illinois. I feel like they just need a little bit more consistency from him. And if that's able to develop next year and in the future, I mean, like, Illinois has got a legit starting quarterback, because like there are moments where Altmyer can be really special. It's just, he's not.
I completely agree. I really like Luke Altmyer, and I'm very confident with him as our quarterback moving forward. I get what Brett's thinking is, like that game that, the last drive that Paddock had against Minnesota and that game that he had against Indiana. It's just hard to bench that. The guy was just, it's rare you see a quarterback that on fire. Like, I know you guys are a little younger than me, but like that reminded me of like Kurt Warner during the Rams years when the guy was just nailing every single throw, throwing for 400 yards every single week. And you needed, Paddock kind of gave you a higher ceiling to beat Iowa, whereas Altmyer kind of gives you a higher floor, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, I mean, I get it. I think we'll see if the magic is still in Paddock on Saturday. If not, it's unfortunate, but I don't. It's not like a matter of being a QB controversy. I don't think we're going to be looking for another quarterback in the portal or anything like that. I think we have a really good young player in Luke Altmyer. Moving forward, trying to think, how has your recruiting been under David Braun?
See, that's really interesting because obviously coming into like this week, essentially, I mean, is the first situation where now he's actually the head coach and like he can actually tell recruits like this is like actually what's going on. Northwestern had signed a couple guys. I mean, no one crazy. Obviously, it's still Northwestern. a couple good players. One from Texas, a big offensive tackle, a 6'7" guy, as well as another defensive secondary piece. But Northwestern, actually, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, where we actually lost our first recruit who had committed back in March to Fitz, and had stuck with the program until now. However, I think he also has offers from like Ohio State and some other big teams, so he decided to move a different direction. But I'm kind of curious to see where this goes forward with recruiting, because I mean, like Ashleigh said, like this guy David Braun is he's the people's coach, he's the players' coach. And I think that energy is very clear, not just from a Northwestern fan perspective, but also from a national media perspective. And just the way that David Braun cares about this team, it's really remarkable, really. And I think from a recruiting perspective, that's huge. I mean, as soon as you talk to any player, they're gonna support, they're gonna back up David Braun, and I don't think that's something that you can really feel as strongly with other teams. And I think that's a big thing Northwestern brings. Also, Northwestern recruiting the next 2 years might be a little tough. They've just passed the new Ryan Field. So after 97 years, Ryan Field's going to be taken down, and there's going to be a new Ryan Field that's going to be about 10,000 seats smaller. It's going to take 2 to 3 years to build. So Northwestern's probably going to have to be playing at Soldier Field the next couple of years. And that's obviously
I was going to ask you. Yeah. Okay. So Soldier Field.
Yeah,
that's
it's not, nothing has been said yet.
Okay.
But I would assume at Soldier Field, maybe Northwestern plays a couple more games at Wrigley, especially once the Cubs season ends. Maybe 2 years from now, we see a lot more of those home games like backloaded into the schedule, so Northwestern can play at Wrigley. But I think that's kind of a tough sell. But even in itself, it's also a unique opportunity. Telling recruits that they can play at Wrigley, playing at Soldier Field. Not every team in the country can say, "Oh, you're going to be playing in an NFL stadium," or much less an MLB stadium, if Northwestern continues that Wrigley tradition moving forward. So I think it's both a good thing and a bad thing. But in 2 or 3 years, and David Braun, if he's able to continue the success, I think this Northwestern team can only go up from obviously the summer.
Yeah, I feel like for the first time in a couple years, if players want to join Northwestern, they have a team that they can get behind, a team that they can help build up to get to that next level. I feel similarly about our basketball team. I feel like last year, our first time in or second time ever in March Madness, like great showing of the fact that a player could join a program and build it up and not just come to a program where they might be like sitting on the bench in a program that's already really good. Like, no, this is a program that is just starting to get back again. David Braun is like the base of that, and helping to build the program up step by step. I can't see why anyone wouldn't want to join Northwestern. I mean, we're amazing. Like, why wouldn't you want to come here? But I don't know if everyone else feels the same, especially since we had a decommit, as Adam said, very recently, which kind of sucks, especially since we just won our 6th game. But I guess Ohio State, like, you can't really beat that.
Yeah, even pre David Braun, not a lot of people are going to beat Ohio State one-on-one for a recruit. But what do you guys think? Shall we make final predictions for the games?
Yeah, let's do it. Oh, Dylan.
All right,
Dylan's screen pops in.
Shall we bring him?
Oh, Dylan?
Okay. All right. We had
sick.
All right. For those not paying attention, we had off screen. We had their third co-host say hello. I didn't bring him on because there's some shenanigans going on in the background, but it was nice to see Dylan. Shall we make final predictions for the game? What do you guys think? Are you guys releasing yours yet?
Yeah, let's do it. So Illinois, obviously they've taken the last 2. But before that, Northwestern had won 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 straight. I just had to, look that up.
Lovie Smith, yeah, he quit recruiting.
I think Northwestern. Obviously, I think Illinois has more to lose in this situation. Obviously, bowl eligibility, but I think this is really a moment where Northwestern can band together, be like, let's just play the disruptors. Let's mess with this team. Let's really hit Illinois while they're down, while they've had a tough season, and let's just show the national media, let's show the Big Ten that this is not a 6-6 team. This is not a team that's kind of like found their way into a bowl game, but a team that legitimately should be in a bowl game, because that's what everyone in the locker room believes. That's what David Braun believes. And I don't even know if it's what Northwestern fans believe, but I think it's something that this Northwestern team believes. So I think that they play the role of the spoilers. It's going to be an ugly game. I mean, every Northwestern game is, and especially in the Big Ten late in the season. But I think the Cats win, let's say 24-20. Illinois has the ball late in the fourth quarter, but they get stuck around like the 30-yard line. Someone comes up with a big defensive stop, and that ices the game. So the Cats win by 4.
Adam, you actually stole my score there. I'll come up with a new one, but great minds think alike. I don't think I can, in good conscience, say that Illinois is going to win this game. It's just rivalry week. I can't do it. I just can't physically bring myself to say Illinois wins. So I'm going to take the Cats as well. Instead of doing 24-20, let's do 27-20. Let's do a touchdown at the end instead of an extra field goal. Or what? No, that's 4 points. I can't math. But let's say we get an extra touchdown at the end. I think that math works out. I just think the momentum that we have. We won our first 2 in a row. The rest of our season has been loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. I think we go 3 in a row. We just have that momentum. We have the fans storming the field. We have our storybook ending for Ryan Field before it gets torn down. I just can't see the season ending any other way, especially against our rivalry team. I think it'll be a sweet win for Cats fans. Make it 7. Just cap off what the most unexpected season.
I think it's time to put a damper on this Cinderella season. I think Brett and the coaching staff are zeroed in. They know how important this game is. When the fans didn't exactly believe in the team after that Nebraska game, Brett and the coaching staff, they didn't back down. They coached us up. As I was telling you guys earlier, I think if the season were extended another few weeks, we'd be one of the better teams in the Big Ten West. And I think we kind of see that on Saturday. I think we have another fun John Paddock game. I'm going to say, again, considering our lack of running backs, I'm going to say he'll put up 350 yards. It's going to be, the game's going to go over. I think it's going to be a fun game. It's one of the more fun games to watch for rivalry week. And I'm going to go with 31-21. Illini finish 6-6, get that bowl game. And, we'll deal with you guys next year. We'll see how things go moving forward. Wherever we play next year, whether it's in Soldier Field or Wrigley Field, that's going to be fun.
For sure.
All right. Well, guys, if you don't mind, maybe tell the listeners again, the ones that subscribe to my feed, where they can find you, and I can kind of do the same. And good luck on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Best of luck to you and Illinois, even though I will not be rooting for you guys in the slightest. We're the WildChat, at the WildChat on Twitter. On Twitter, you can find our Spotify and our YouTube link where you can find our podcast. But we post everything on Twitter. That's our most up-to-date social media. Or X. It's Twitter. So at the WildChat, and it's the WildChat podcast on YouTube if you're not on Twitter. And yeah, at Big Banter Sports, you can find both of our podcasts as well.
Okay, and I'm the Illini Cast. Basically, we try to release a couple episodes every week. We mainly focus on college football, but we also dabble a bit or two in our college basketball team, which historically is a little bit better than our football team. And thank you guys for joining us. And again, I actually take back my good luck. I'll wish you luck in the bowl game, and let us have one on Saturday. All right.
We'll see.
All right. Take care, guys. And we'll talk to you guys later.
Perfect.